Welcome back. This is episode 128. As we close out 2022, I want to make sure that people are setting themselves up for success in 2023. And since this is a podcast about retirement planning, one of the ways to have success is by saving enough money towards retirement. And chances are you're already doing that through either your employer-sponsored retirement plan, such as a 401k, 457 plan, 403b plan, but you might not be taking advantage of a potentially even better retirement savings plan, and that's through a health savings account, or HSA, as it's known for short. Now, you might be thinking, what does an HSA have to do with retirement? Well, the answer is that it has to do a lot with retirement. In this episode, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you should be opening up one of these accounts in 2023. So reason number 1, this account is triple tax-free. What that means is that HSAs have an unmatched tax treatment and are known as a triple tax-free account. This means that you receive a deduction when you make your contribution into the HSA account. Your money, while it's invested, any gains, interest, or dividends that it receives are tax deferred. And if you take the money out for health-related costs, it's 100% tax-free. Every other type of retirement account that you could be using, you're paying tax on part of the transaction. Let's just say it's a Roth IRA or 401k. You're paying tax on the money first before it gets invested in the Roth IRA or 401k. What about a 529 plan? Same thing. You pay tax on the money first, and then it grows tax deferred. What about a traditional 401k or IRA? You get a tax deduction when the money goes in, but when the money comes out, it's taxable. So there isn't any other account that has this special tax treatment. Now, the other thing is that once you reach age 65, if you have excess money in your health savings account that you probably aren't going to use and you want to take it out to pay for other costs, you can do that, and it would be taxed just like a 401k distribution would. You'd pay income tax on whatever you took out. Now, prior to age 65, there is a little bit of a penalty to take any money out of your health savings accounts. You'd pay a 20% penalty if you take any money out for non-health related costs prior to 65. So that's a little more penalizing than a 401k or IRA where the penalty is 10%, but I still think that that penalty outweighs the benefits of the triple tax-free account outweigh any penalty that could occur. If you don't next thing is that regarding how much, does someone need to set aside for health-related costs? Well, Fidelity estimates a number every year that a 65-year-old couple would need to have in health-related costs or health-related monies to pay for their health and medical expenses in retirement, excluding long-term care expenses. And that number this year is $315,000. So having some of your money in a health savings account, I think, is a great idea because it gives you another bucket of money to tap into, especially one that's tax-free. So reason number 2 why the HSA is such a great account is you can invest the money. And I would say this is the real benefit of the account, is the compound growth that you could get in your health savings account, just like you could in your 401k or your IRA or your Roth IRA. And a lot of people are doing it wrong. They are using their HSAs as essentially checking accounts, right? They put the money in and they take it out. But to get the real benefit, you need to potentially invest your money in some type of a bucket strategy. What do I mean by that? Well, if you think about health-related costs, the HSA, you have some expenses that could come up in the near future, right? That's why you have this account to pay for out-of-pocket expenses, emergencies, sicknesses. So you'd want to have some money in relatively conservative, minimal fluctuation a bucket. So that could be where you use a money market or short-term bonds. And then a good portion of the money, if you're not going to be using it for a long time, you want to think of more as a longer-term investment. And that's where you'd want to have that money invested in stock funds, real estate funds, possibly commodities funds for longer-term growth. So thinking about using some type of a bucketing strategy. And the next thing you need to think about is your account at least paying you a minimum amount of interest And interest was not a big deal a few years ago because interest rates were almost zero. So no HSA accounts were paying interest. Things have really changed a lot in 2022. And now you can get a competitive rate of interest of 3 to 4%. So if you're not earning a competitive rate of interest of at least 3% on your health savings account, this is a reason why you might want to think about switching where you have your HSA account. So I'll talk a little bit about the HSA providers that are out there, but I currently use Fidelity, and I looked at my account prior to recording this because I'm utilizing this bucketing strategy as well. I have some money in short-term funds. And my short-term money I just have in the Fidelity Government Cash Reserve Fund. The symbol is FDRXX, and its 7-day yield as of December 14th, when I'm recording this, was 3.42%. So that's a very good yield. Don't have to do anything, and I'm earning that amount of interest. So if you have a lot of money in cash in your HSA account, which studies show most people do, make sure you're earning a competitive rate of interest of at least probably 3%. If not, you need to move that account because you're losing opportunity there. So according to a study that was done by Morningstar puts out an annual report every year on the HSA landscape. They put their 22 report out in September. They said that according to Fidelity, which offers an investment option, only 1 in 5 people are actually taking advantage of that. So most people at Fidelity just have their money in one of the default cash accounts like the one I'm using. And another big HSA provider is the HSA Authority. Only 1 in 29 people there are actually investing their money. So those are some low numbers. Most people are not taking advantage of that. So if you're not, then definitely you should be looking at your investment options. Now, this report doesn't cover the HSAs provided by employers, and that's the main reason that people get an HSA. You're on a high deductible health plan. Maybe it's voluntary, maybe it's involuntary, but now your company offers you an HSA. You're contributing to it, but you don't have to keep your money with your HSA provider through work. So if you don't have good investment options, meaning good is just looking at the cash option, if you're not earning a good rate of interest on your money sitting in cash, that's one reason to consider moving the account. Another is that if you don't have a wide selection of investment choices, and what I mean by that, well, you should probably have a large cap stock fund, a mid cap, a small cap stock fund to choose from, an international stock fund, an emerging market stock fund, potentially a real estate stock fund, a commodities fund, and also on the bond side, you should have a cash account or money market option with a competitive rate of interest, an intermediate term bond, and a short term bond. So if you don't have those options to choose from, and I'm also a big believer in index funds. Index funds are funds with low expense ratios. So that's another thing you should be looking at is the expense ratios of the funds that you can choose from. If those aren't below 0.1%, which is where most of those should be, if you look at some of the lowest index fund providers out there, what they're charging is less than 0.1% on an annual basis, then that's another reason to think about moving the account. Now with your 401k, you are limited to moving a 401k generally until you reach 59.5 or you separate from that company, moving it to another provider. But the beauty about an HSA, you're not limited to any restrictions like that. With an HSA, you can move the money whenever you want. So if you find that your HSA is not good because of the investment options or they're charging you high fees, then this can be a reason to move the account, and you could very easily open an HSA account with another provider and move the money over there. You do have to do a little bit of work to request the transfer, but it can be done, and it's really not that difficult. And it should be something you should look at if you find from listening to this you don't have a good HSA account. I see all the time people have HSA accounts with their bank that are literally paying them nothing, and they're leaving them there. And you should not be doing that. You know, just like I've talked in past episodes about keeping a lot of money in cash in your bank or savings account not earning interest, you should be looking at changing that. So reason number 3 is that you can reimburse yourself or pay for expenses at any age with an HSA account. With traditional retirement accounts, we talked earlier about it, reaching age 59 and a half is usually the magic number to be able to take money out without a penalty. But with HSA accounts, you can use these accounts at any point. Now, I mentioned earlier how I think most people are doing it wrong. They're using these as checking accounts. The money goes into the HSA account. You have a debit card. You're swiping the debit card every time you go to the doctor or you have a health-related cost, which is okay because you still are getting a tax deduction when the money goes in. So there is some savings to you. And if you're not at least doing that, if you have a high deductible health plan and you're not putting money into the HSA and you're just paying out of pocket, that's even worse. So look at how much you're paying out of pocket every year. And if you're eligible for a HSA account, make sure you're putting at least that into your HSA every year. But the best way to do it would be to contribute the money to the HSA. And because of the triple tax-free nature, invest a good portion of the money and leave it in there for a while. And then down the road, you can reimburse yourself for those out-of-pocket expenses that you've had and reimburse yourself in a tax-free manner. So let's just say you're able to contribute to your HSA. You can let it grow for 10 years. And during that 10-year period, you're tracking your out-of-pocket costs that you have to pay that are qualified costs. You're tracking them in an Excel spreadsheet, saving the receipts. And let's say 10 years later, your HSA account has grown to $50,000 and you've had $25,000 of out-of-pocket costs that you've paid over the years. Well, you can take that $25,000 out and reimburse yourself tax-free at any point. You want to go on a great vacation, you're going to use the money to buy a second home, pay for your child's education, whatever it is, as long as you've had those expenses, since you've had the high deductible health plan, you've had the HSA, you can reimburse yourself. So that would be ideally how I would suggest you get the most from the HSA in the triple tax-free manner by tracking those expenses. Now, these are accounts, it might not be possible to do that, right? Things can get expensive, healthcare costs are expensive, and if you have an emergency, you might not be able to do that, but that's kind of why you have these plans. But if you can, leave the money in there for a while, and you can either use it to reimburse yourself at some point in the future, and that can be a big windfall to you. Now, where should you be opening one of these accounts? Well, first thing to remember is that they're only available to you if you're on a high deductible health plan. And you can check with your employer to find out if you qualify. And if you do, for a single person, the limit is $3,850. And for a married couple or someone with a dependent, the family plan maximum is $7,700. So that's your contribution limit between you and your employer. So if your employer, let's say, puts in $1,000 a year, then you have to reduce your maximum contribution by whatever your employer puts in. And then if you're over 55, you can contribute an additional $1,000 catch-up. Now, where I see people miss this opportunity is that one spouse is usually covered through the plan. Let's say the other spouse is over 55. For them to make the $1,000 catch-up, which they're eligible for, they need to open their own HSA account. Now, that's not a big deal. You can do that anywhere. But to put in the full $1,000 catch-up for each spouse, if you're over 55, make sure that you're both doing that. According to Morningstar, 21% of workers in 2021 were in a high deductible health plan. And this could make sense for you to lower your out-of-pocket health costs. Let's say that the premium is $500 less a month through your employer if you go to a high deductible health plan from like a POS plan. And if you save that money, if you take that $500 monthly savings and you put that into the HSA, you could have a savings over the year. If you and your family were healthy, you didn't have a lot of health care costs, you didn't go to the doctor or have any accidents or illnesses, maybe you end up keeping that $6,000 and now that goes into your HSA. So that's the risk that you're taking. But for a lot of people over the long term, chances are you can lower your premium and also increase your retirement and healthcare savings by putting it into the HSA. And Morningstar also estimates that over the last year, HSA balances have grown by 15%. So again, Morningstar has this report. They rank HSA providers. I've mentioned this in past podcasts, but the number one provider for HSA accounts is Fidelity. And they rate that on a couple different metrics. One being the saving aspect, and that would be just the money market rate they're paying, also the fees, and the ease of getting money in and out of the account. So Fidelity gets a 5 out of 5. The next two highest companies are First American Bank and HSA Bank. They get a 4.4 out of 5. So those are good options too. And I can tell you that with Fidelity, there's no cost to have the account. They are paying you a good rate of interest on if you just leave the money uninvested, and they don't charge you anything to move money in and out of the account. So it is a really good option. And then next, they rank these companies by their investment options, and they look at the fund selection that they have. I mentioned the different funds they should have. They also look at the cost of the funds, whether they offer both index funds and actively managed, and also whether they charge you to have the investment account. Because what some of these providers do is they make you have a minimum balance, let's say like $5,000, before you can invest the money. So they're looking for companies that don't do that. So again, Fidelity has the highest ranking, a 4.4 out of 5, and the second best is Health Equity with a score of 4.2. So again, I have my account at Fidelity, and you can go to open an HSA with Fidelity. Just go to Google and type in Fidelity HSA. You can open the account probably in less than 5 minutes, and you can either transfer another account over there if you have another account that either doesn't let you invest the money, doesn't have good options, isn't giving you a good savings rate. Think about transferring it over. And the other thing to think about also is that if you get to the end of the year and you're listening to this at the end of the year or early next year and you haven't contributed the maximum, most people are contributing to their HSAs through payroll deduction. That's fine to do because it's automatic. I like automatic savings. But then to get the maximum in, if you figure you've got an extra $1,000 you could put in, that's a tax deduction. That's why it's such a big thing. You could contribute that to the HSA account somewhere else, like Fidelity. So I personally would recommend linking your bank account wherever you open this plan, so that if you need to move money in or out, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to pull it from your bank account, push it back to your bank account to reimburse yourself, and make sure you're putting in the maximum for 2022 or 2023 if you're just getting this set up. But if you're eligible in 2022, you still have time. You have until the tax filing deadline to make any contributions up to the maximum. I strongly encourage people to do that because of the triple tax-free nature. I even think this is better than a Roth IRA for a lot of people because of the fact that you're getting a tax deduction, and this can be tax-free to you for health-related costs, and it can sit in there your entire lifetime before it would have to come out. So I hope this episode was helpful on 3 reasons why you need to open an HSA account in 2023. And I wish everyone a happy and safe end of your 2022, and I wish you a great 2023. And thanks for listening throughout the year. And if you have any listener questions, I would greatly appreciate you submitting those by going to retirewithryan.com. Take care.